that we're on is about psychic abilities, mediumship, being a channeler, and really asking Cherise and Michelle their different heart-based experiences that sometimes the questions that we choose can also help to open up other depths of knowing. It's a topic about our inherent gifts, and for we're born with different gifts and perhaps didn't know that we had those gifts, or didn't even know what to do with those gifts, or didn't even think that anyone, like, anything was different with anyone else, kind of thing. That so what I wanted to really do was to jump right in, and start asking I want to start asking Cherise about her journey in her becoming the psychic that she is, the channeler. And Cherise, for yourself, when was it that you recognized that you had that capability, those abilities?
So for years, when I was, let's say in my 20s and late teens and 20s, I had this uncanny ability to be able to tell my friends about their boyfriends or people that they liked, and I could I didn't know that was what you called reading energy, though. At that point, I didn't know what I was doing, but I could be on the phone, and I'd be on the phone with people for hours, just telling them all sorts of stuff, and didn't realize that A, I was reading energy, and B, I probably not cool to do it, but I didn't know because they needed info, and and I thought it was just human nature, and I was just talking about, so. That's how it kind of started. And then when I moved into my neighborhood, I want to say 10 years ago, a whole bunch of things happened at work. And I ironically, with an organization that I used to run, I wasn't running it then, but the person who was running the organization was bound by certain rules. They couldn't say anything to me about what was happening, but I could read the situation. I knew what was happening, and I was telling them things about what was happening. And at one point, they said to me, "You're a seer. You can see." And I said, "See what? I'm just telling you what I know." And they're like, "No, you're saying things that nobody else would know." And I sort of put that away and said, maybe that's true, but I didn't realize it. And then I befriended someone who also had abilities, and I didn't realize that I had abilities, and they helped me to understand that I did. And that was probably about 8 years ago. And I sort of took a deep dive into it. It was just sort of jumped into reading. I've learned about crystals almost around that time. I learned the power of crystals to protect and hold energy. I learned about multidimensionality almost just like that. It was I was hanging out with this friend, and all of a sudden I started channeling Arcturians. They just showed up one day, and I didn't know Arcturian from the hole in the wall. I didn't know what any of that was. I had read a little bit of Edgar Casey, and had some sense, but these entities just made themselves known through me, and it was full on, when I say full persona and voice channel, when I really stumbled into it, my voice changed, my face changed, my body shifts, and all of it happened really rather quickly. Then just, how can I put it? I started to try to figure out why this was happening and how, and I ended up along the way, the thing that really catalyzed it for me, because I wouldn't call myself a medium or a psychic or anything like that, was a bad almost relationship where I had met this person online. He had tremendous abilities, but he was tremendously dark, and I learned to do certain things that I didn't think were bad. They weren't bad, like not good or bad or whatever, but they opened me up to a lot of negative energy that I didn't know what to do with. And so when I ended things with him, I ended up along the way, maybe I was hanging out with him for a couple of months, I ended up getting psychically attacked. And he was like, oh, it's not me, check out your friend. And I think a combination between the two of them, I was getting psychically attacked, and I reached out to a friend who was basically a teacher, basically a priest's priest in a certain Santero religion. He was a Santero, he's Palero, really, in Palo Mayambe. I'd known him for decades, and I reached out to him, and he thought, well, maybe I'll talk for an hour. There's nothing that really going on with her. Whatever. Maybe she just can't sleep at night. And this was after I had been woken up at 3:33 on March 3rd. And that was just like, even for me, who didn't really know much then about numbers, was just like, oh, snap, that's something. And had been attacked. And I stayed on the phone with him for 6 hours. And by the end of it, he was like, oh, you have abilities. We need to get you trained. And he was really the one, whose name's Ernesto. He's the one who really told me it was okay.
But thank you, because that's, there's so many others too that have had similar journeys, and especially where we are today in the collective, there are many that are going to start questioning their experiences and not knowing really who to turn to, who to ask these type of questions to, like, are they going crazy? Are they losing their mind? And it usually happens in families that are pretty close to it or pretty scared of it, only because of their inability to, it's not really their inability, but it's more of their fear of it themselves, because they know that it's so true way in their subconscious that they don't want to go anywhere near it, and they try to close it down, and especially close those down that have those abilities. And so, like for yourself, did you have situations when you were little where you would know things without knowing why you would know them?
Yeah, I would know things. Or I remember being really young and like being, and maybe even seeing things, I remember, I had a birthday, and I said, I had a birthday party, and I said at the party, I was like, I don't want to have to go to school anymore. And then like the next week I was in a car accident and like almost died. And didn't go to school for like a month, right? And like in my mind, I was like, I made that happen, right? You know, or I remember being very close to my great grandmother, who was very, very, very religious person, and went to church, very religious. And her daughter, my grandmother, very religious person on both sides of my family, like very, and the men on my dad's side much more are very religious also. And as I scratched the surface, I know for several of the people in my family, the protector against their own psychic ability. You know, it's a protector. They would rather stand, like almost use the Bible as a shield for that rather than do that. And I think that my great grandmother on my mom's side probably had a deep psychic ability from just growing up in South Carolina, you know, the turn of the century, and you know, in a black farming community where that's part of the life, you know. And I think it's interesting to think about how we shelve the supernatural and put it away, put it off to the side, and think of it as superstition. I think of it as things that happen to other people but don't happen to us because we're good Christians, right? And I've had to have those conversations even now with relatives who want to say, you know, who want to sidle up to me and go, you know, I really want to see you in heaven. You know, why are you doing this? Like, you know, you don't want to go to. And I'm like, there's no hell about what I do. I am not doing anything dark or negative. Like, this is not bad stuff, you know? And I kind of have to always stand in that and be like, I'm working in the light just like you. Jesus is all right with me, you know? And I have to kind of have those conversations to allay their fears, you know? But I do think that I wouldn't say that I was told it was bad, but I do think that there was sort of a sense of, well, we don't have to talk about that in mixed company, or we don't talk about that outside the house, or we just don't talk about that, you know? So, but I don't think it was like, I have worked with people for whom their abilities get like zeroed out by loved ones who mean well, and that wasn't the case with me. Now what's weird is people just don't really believe that I do what I do, and so that's kind of always surprising. Even when even when there'll be so many confirmations of what I do is helpful, useful, powerful, and healing, there will be people who will just still be like, yeah, well, okay. I thought that only happened on TV. All right, well, whatever. You know, you go ahead and think you do that. Okay. I'll just let it go. I prove anything to anybody.
Very true. Very, very true.
Cherise, is there a lineage of these gifts in your family? Is this something that's other people in your family have had too?
So I've been able to figure out that I have an aunt that on my father's side who's got very strong abilities, and but she again is a church lady more so than the psychic, but she will, like, I can talk to her like on the side and be like, okay, did you just experience X, Y, or Z? Or, you know, we've had very powerful conversations where I've been like, okay, like, I'm gonna just say this, and then she'll be like, okay, yeah, this thing, you know. So I think on my mom's side, there's a cousin who has some definite gifts and abilities, which is fascinating. Went to a crystal shop with her. We walked around together and had a really cool time. And I would love to talk with her more, just to see how her gifts came through in terms of the lineage from her. And she's my mom's cousin. So like my great grandmother's son's child. So that's how that was. So I think on both sides, I have gone to a spiritualist. I went to a spiritualist church, and the energies that were there waiting for me were on my father's side. They were my maternal great grandparent and their daughters, and they all had gifts. So there's a lot of it on both sides, I think.
Cool, very interesting. You can just feel something like that. It's in your lineage.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and it's weird though. Like I shouldn't have to go scratching for it. Like I should be able to be. Hey, we should be able to have a conversation, but I don't mind. Like I like to do a little bit of digging, a little investigating, sleuthing around in the bloodline.
Okay, so I was having a little bit of struggles with River over here when she was telling her story, but I wanted to know what age you truly felt that you were stagnated. Like, what was the age where you were like, wow, there are these magical things happening, but you felt like somebody stagnated you?
I'd have to say, so I want to say, a good amount of my 20s and 30s really very sick. Like I had autoimmune disease, rare autoimmune disease. I had Graves' disease. I had this disease called Behçet's disease, which was like a form of vasculitis. I had all of these illnesses, and it really came to a head, and I was really super sick when I left Pittsburgh in '99. It was like all coming to a head, and then I was so sick when I was in Pittsburgh. So in the 90s, I was 27, 28, 29. And then when I hit 30 and I moved to Westchester, I was still sick. And I really didn't come out of that until I stepped into my abilities, which would have been like 7 years ago. So I was probably super stagnated when I was in my early 30s. I want to say, and I started that job 30 and through probably 37, 38, 40, yeah, all of the 30s.
Well, what I'm thinking is, was there someone specifically that told you that like that's too woo-woo, or or no, you don't see those things, or that's not real, or that's demons? Like, was there somebody that put you in a place where you felt like your abilities were not legitimate?
I want to say, remember how we were having that conversation the other night, and I told you about the sound healing where those energies popped out that were generational, and my great grandmother on my father's side, like she finally had to leave me, right? And then I had another uncle that was there with her too, and he had to leave me too because of the sound. The vibration rose so high, and I think those two were with me trying to stop things from happening, but particularly she was trying to stop things from happening. And she had, evidently, she had abilities because she would just make herself known. Before she sort of glommed onto me, she'd make herself known in my grandmother's kitchen. She'd just show up and scare the shit out of my aunt. Like, right? So, like, so I think, right, she just like, she just popped up, and so I think that part of it was, I think if it was anybody, it was spirit that was with me that was just stopping me, right? And then after I had that sound healing, all of those internal like questions it just stopped. Like they just went away and it just stopped. There was nobody ever really saying no, like you can't have abilities. But it was almost like, well, why would you want them? Do you know what I mean? But I hear what you're saying. And maybe if I really sit with that question, maybe. But we're not, my main family is not very religious. I mean, my mom goes to church, whatever, but we're not. So it wouldn't have been that. I think it would have been more about a fear of being different, probably. Even just a little different, you know?
The reason that I ask that is because I feel like you need to go to the moments where you felt the most stagnation in your life, where you felt the most oppression, spiritual or otherwise, and send healing to that now as yourself. I don't know when the last time you've done that was, but trying to picture those precise moments makes the healing, I think, flow a little smoother. So that's why I brought that up.
Oh, thank you. I think it's a great idea. It's probably time for me to look into my spiritual Tupperware, and like open those containers up and see what's compartmentalized in there and festering and sitting in the back of a cabinet somewhere or a refrigerator, what?
That's my new favorite term.
Yeah, spiritual Tupperware, right? I'll compartmentalize a whole bunch of stuff,
I believe Heather is absolutely smack right on. And I believe Danny is also guiding to look at the DNA source so that the purity of the gifts can continue flowing without certain gates within the DNA of the blood flow from generation to generation to generation. And it's really interesting. I want to circle back afterwards on the whole great grandmother and all that. I really do. I want to circle.
Yes, I do have a lot of questions for Cherise, actually. Yes. I feel that her journey is really fascinating. I have always wanted to know. Cherise, I realize that over time, as with friendship with you, I see that you have the ability to be able to see entities and such, and I just wonder, how do you manage to, when you see those entities, do you actually see with your mind's eye, or you just have a sense, and how did you actually manage to clear them?
Well, what you mean, like when I went into that house the other day?
Yeah.
It was so weird because when I first went in there, I was like, "Oh, there's nothing going on here. It was okay, right?" But what happened was, I realized that once I was able to sort of drop my vibration, I could sense them. Right, I could kind of be in that seeking mode, and in order to be in the seeking mode of lower density energies, you have to be sort of near that vibration, which is not fun, right? So when I dropped down into that, I sensed them. I couldn't see them, but the way it sort of happened for me in that house anyway was the first idea that I had, or idea that there was something wrong, was when my friend said, "Oh, that's the basement. It's creepy as hell down there. I only do laundry and then I get the fuck out of there." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." He even had something in front of the door, right? So he waited until half an hour before we were going to leave, and he's like, "Can you do that saging for me?" Right? And I was like, "Okay, sure." Right? And I was like, "Okay, we'll do it quick. There's nothing here." I go down in the basement with a sage stick and some holy fire Reiki, doing my doing my thing, and I was like, holy crap. I could just feel it. Thank God I didn't see it in my mind's eye, but what I felt was just like over a century of just energy, like crammed down there, that was not happy. And that's putting it mildly, not happy. And I just started, opened a portal, and I called in my helpers, and I just started using holy fire, because I didn't have time. Like the old way, but the traditional way of doing rescue work would be to like consult with every entity that you encounter and move them through and make sure they're healed and send them to the other side and connect them with their loved ones and helping them. I didn't have time for all that. So I just raised everyone's vibration with holy fire, brought in the shepherding angels, and sent everybody through the portal as much as I possibly could. And then I went through other parts of the house, and once I knew that vibration, I could feel it in other places. And I could feel the house was like Swiss cheese. I was just closing portals everywhere I went, every corner, it felt like every place I turned, I could sense a portal in the wall or in a window, and I was closing and trying to shore up the house in that way. And also, there were portals within the house leading to other parts of the house. So I was closing like original portals that were leading to upstairs and other things, because it was like an infestation of bad spirit. Whereas you might say like, so anyway, I don't want to get all into it, but anyway, I just closed off the portal, closed the house, closed it all down, sent everybody packing, and set up a grid after I saged each level. But it was an interesting experience, because I went to every place where my friend had an issue in the house, and I didn't know. He was like, I don't know how you knew to go there. I don't know how you knew to go there. I just felt that's where they were. I don't know if I want the gift of seeing.
Amazing.
I really don't know if I want that. Oh, thank you for asking, because I don't know. I think I might end up crying in a corner if I could see.
You won't be able to shut it once you open.
Right? Like,
oh God!
I really don't need to see that. I really just no. Good with just let me just move it. Some of it's pretty bad.
I have one quick question also for you, Cherise. Mm-hmm. Have you ever come up to a situation? I haven't, and this is why I wanted to ask yourself. Have you ever come up to a situation where you were very unsure of how to deal with a certain spirit or a certain entity? Have you ever come up to that type of a situation, maybe at the very beginning of really working with the abilities, but were you ever like scared out of your pants of like, what do I do now kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, still, I think at the beginning of any new, so one story where I was scared, it was hilarious. I can laugh about it now because like it's kind of funny. It was like a Scooby-Doo kind of thing. I had a friend wanted their house cleared. They were feeling there were energies in their house, and I was like, okay. So it was me, and this is before it was me and these three ladies, and we it was like a Friday night, and we just sort of started. It was a big old house. I have like my sage and my abalone bowl and like a pot holder, and like somebody's got like some Palo Santo. Somebody else has an incense stick. Like, we're all armed, right? We're walking through this house. We go to the basement, which was creepy, but whatever. Basements are like that for me. And then we're walking up the stairs, and I feel like we're pushing energy up. And this is early on in my journey. We're pushing energy up, We get to the top, and the attic is renovated. In the attic, there's a playroom. And we go in the playroom, and I swear to God, there was a play stove. It was like a kid's like plastic play stove. It starts bubbling, and there's a pot on there, and it just turns on with nobody done jack shit to turn it on. It just turns on, and it's making noise. It's lit up, and I was like, zoinks and holy shit, right? And so we're all like, ah! We have a plastic cook stove. This house, right? And we're all like, like become like the Pope from like The Exorcist or whatever. And I found out later that was not the right way to do things, but we saged it, and then it still started to bubble and do some like weird stuff, and like, no, you can't stay here. Open up a portal, set it on its way, blah blah blah. And when we clear the rest of the house, I have a feeling everything's gone. And it was really funny. Later, I found out she ended up putting that stove out on the curb for the trash to pick up. But it was one of those things where I didn't care what was in it, but it had to go, right? But I was scared out of my mind because I was like, oh my God, like this person really did have something in their house. And ended up being that they liked to hold on to energy. And they thought that their house was so nice, it could be like heaven on earth. And I said, no, there's only heaven and there's earth. There's heaven and there's earth. And you don't get to have a little space in between in your house where you keep your spirit friends. They all have to go. And I remember having a conversation with them like, no, you cannot do this. This is not fair to them or to the living that are in your house. And so it was a really interesting conversation, an interesting day for me in my own development. But yeah, I mean, there'll be times like that, like when my brother called me up, and one of my brothers called me up, and he's like, I don't know what that was, but something that looked like a ghost just like went down the hallway in the house. And I was like, oh really? And had to really sort of tap into that from a distance and figure out how to help him and figure out how to make the house safe and so he could sleep there at night. And things like that happen. That's a funny one because he ended up joining I was doing a spirit rescue circle, a virtual spirit rescue circle, and he joined, and they were all my friends from New England who were rescue mediums, and they were like, oh, it's wicked cool you joined us. Oh my goodness, you're Cherise's brother. Oh, that's awesome. And blah, blah. And he was like, I just have ghosts in my house. He's like, all you do is help me get this thing out. And we did. But it was really interesting. So yeah, I have that all the time where every time I don't have an answer, I have to really like clear away my fear and understand that I am the embodied spirit. I am the one who has the technology in my body, and that's what they want. They want the body, they want the technology, but I'm the one who is fully in my power and can fully help and heal those around me. So,
Cherise, when you actually, when you use your body as a channeler kind of thing, I just want to find out about what do you actually, where were you, I mean, are they actually taken over the body completely, or basically your awareness are still, you're still there and you can hear what they're saying?
I'm still there. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna move over to the side. If that
Yeah.
makes a slide, my consciousness slides over, and then the channel. They can step fully into the channel as much as I allow them to speak and to connect. I usually very careful about what I will let happen. Sometimes, especially if an energy wants to jump in and take over my voice or assume the technology of my body, I will not let them. I will say, you stay back there, you stay over there,
Mm-hmm.
and you tell me what you want to say, but I will not let you just use me that way. I often will just do that. That's more my go-to. Sometimes, though, if I'm in the, I will let it happen more if I'm viewing channeled messages with a client, and we're in the Akashic records, and a loved one will come forward, or a higher dimensional being will come forward. I'm in that safe space, and I feel like I can do it. But yeah, I can allow that to happen. I don't like to do it all the time because I feel as though it's it. I want to be able to discern. I want to be in high discernment mode, and not let just everything come in. Thanks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. Is it actually a direct voice kind of thing when you're actually doing the channeling? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like direct voice in a sense the voice will change. Let's say if you're female, the being that came through is actually a male, so then your voice automatically become a male.
Yeah. The voice will
Wow,
alter.
that's awesome. Yeah, altered. Yeah,
It'll get
that's
really
great. Great to hear that. Yeah.
fascinating. I have to find the one time it really shocked me was when I was
Mhm.
we were playing around. It was a pandemic, whatever, and a friend said, "Oh, I really want to talk to Sylvia Brown." And I was like, "Oh, sure, let's try it." She's like, "Well, I don't really
Yeah,
want to do it."
silver brown. Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, I will bring in Sylvia Brown."
Mhm.
So we had sessions where I was channeling Sylvia Brown. Cool, right? But then Sylvia Brown says,
Mhm.
I have a surprise for you, right? And she brings in Edgar Casey, right? And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I'm like channeling Casey, who's like my hero at that point, and really interesting. And then he says, like the next session, he says, wait, basically like hold my non-alcoholic beer, right? He's just like, and he brings in Jesus, and it was amazing. Like it was amazing. So because it was like Casey channeling Jesus, me channeling Casey, and like through that chain of energies, Jesus shows up. Whew. And you could feel it. Like you could just feel the high vibration in the space. It's amazing.
What was I was gonna ask you. Well, I can't get this right now. Okay. If you are a dreamwalker.
You know what's so weird? I wish I could remember my dreams more. I have a friend who will tell me about full-on missions that we've had together in Dreamtime. I don't remember much of anything of what happens, but evidently there's a version of me in the astral plane who's a freaking badass. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I'm always amazed at, but evidently she is tremendously powerful. And so there's that. So but I'm not, as I hear that I am. I wake up sometimes very tired, very anxious, very like there's things that have happened, but I don't know what they are. But the residue of it, and that would be something I would really use some help with. The residue of my dream time is really heavy right now. It's been that way for the past. I wake up and I am having to give myself Reiki because I can't. I wake up anxious and I wake up worn out.
Do you have your bed gridded?
I need to grid the bed here. Yeah, that would probably help.
Celestite is a really good crystal for helping to prevent nightmares, but also like keeping your dream space clear. Because there are times when I have felt where I know that I've been like when I wake up really, really tired, almost like feeling like hungover. If I haven't done a bunch of actual work the day before, physically, spiritually, whatever, but I'm just waking up so tired. There's no, astrological crazy weather going on or anything. Everything should be fine. Then I know that I've been extremely active in the dream time, probably against my will. Because I feel like when your dream time has kind of been hacked, you won't remember what's going on, but you've been very active. So you'll be physically tired, mentally foggy. So it's probably a good idea for you to grid your bed, clear your room, get some salt and put it in a bag and everything, do all the things and claim your boundaries in your dream space, because if you're going on all these active missions, your friends telling you you're going on all these active missions, like it's probably a big deal for you to know what they are, so that you can consent to them.
Right.
Because like if you've got a big day here in the physical, the next day, that might not be a day to go on a mission. It might not be a night to go on a mission. So then you'd have to say like, tonight I will sleep a restful sleep. This is my own. Tonight is my own, or if you're ready to receive those dreams, say I will remember my dreams, or like I will not be physically or energetically drained by the dreams that I have, because dream space is that is something Danny and I tell 95% of the people that we work on. Like, that's you're there half of your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's important, if you don't know what's going on over there, like half of your time is spent doing whatever out there, so.
That's so true. And it's really in a myth. I'm like, I wake up miffed. I'm like, what is happening where I feel like I'm swirling, like a little swirling, and then I'm like, okay, I Reiki, I do that. I try to set the space, but you're right, it needs to be gridded. So celestite around the whole bed, or would you do celestite?
I just got a chunk of celestite that I have in my room with me. I ask it to just kind of help filter out the nasty dreams and stuff like that. I can tell you that unless you have to look up the certain stones that are going to help you sleep or help keep your space clear. Because I mean, even though putting carnelian in your bedroom can be fun, you don't want to have that in your bed all the time, because you'll be if you're not getting busy, then you're going to be actively creating things all the time and wanting to have energy. So like you have to pay attention to which ones, so you can keep yourself clear. Grounding stones are usually pretty good. I would think like hematite or amethyst would probably be a good one. It's usually a pretty chill one.
It also depends where you place them. When you're gridding them, the most the most important thing, if I could just jump in,
Oh,
just
you're good.
to add just a little touch of spice, is one of the things that you could do, whether, like, I have almost every book you could think of about crystals, and I wanted to learn so much about them. And then what I found was that what your body responds to may not be exactly what's written in all these different wisdom books. And it's not to say that they really guided me and helped me and opened me up to the depths of wisdom that I still I still say I don't know anything, kind of thing, to the depths of what is truly available to us. So what I found that really works when connecting your body to a crystal is to specifically ask that space of your body, whether it's an organ, or whether it's your head, whether it's your chest, whether it's your stomach, whether it's your back, whether it's your legs, is to ask them, body, what is it that you require to help you in your dream worlds, to help you in your dream walk? And you give your specifics and your intention to what it is that you're really looking for. So, for instance, you could grid your bed for astral dreaming. You could grid your bed for manifesting in your dream world. You could grid your bed to increase the blood flow. You could grid your bed to do work on your intestines, because the way that I'll offer an experience from myself. When since I was a kid, my dreams have always been absolutely insane, crazy. I was always told I was a storyteller, like at school. And every report card was like, oh, she's a chatterbox. She just blah, 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 blah. And she talks about, like, you know, all these like aliens and angels and beings and all this stuff. And at a certain point, what I had learned was, when I kept my gut clean, when I really kept up the practice of colonics and cleaning the colon, my dreams were absolutely so clear and no interference, whether I gridded my bed or I didn't. So I found that gridding the bed with the colonics was like a supercharge. But just to get my dream world balanced and cleared and cleaned was all in the colonics, was all in the colon, all about clearing out the gut. And once we get to that place, because if you think of all from the time that you were a little kid to today, how many dreams have you dreamt that were reoccurring dreams, and then they stopped and you started other dreams? And in my experience, what I found is that those dreams that we participated in are still going today. Whether we dreamt them when we were 5 years old, or when we were 13 years old, or we were 25 or 35 years old. If we don't go in and clean out our dream worlds and bring them back to what I call is the 0 point or sacred neutrality, then that's where you can get a clash of different influences of different versions of yourself. So to be able to recognize in our dreams, are we being influenced by outer influences? Are we being influenced by our own unhealed versions of ourselves throughout the years. And so when we do the colonics and we clear out, and I mean, for myself, when I started to seriously really do that, I had done 7 colonics within 2 months, and it was pretty heavy duty. The cleansing, the clearing, the revocations, oh man, it was tough. Like when it was tough. It was really, really, really tough, because imagine all the things that we've held on to in our intestines for 10, 15 years that are still rotting in our intestines and influencing our emotions, our hormones, and the way that we interact with other energy fields. So in the dream time, I would highly, highly, highly just suggest start on getting the colon cleansed out, and then start doing the gridding, so that you can start seeing what the differences are. And then when you're going to collect or choose the crystals of the way you want to grid your bed, and the way I would grid my bed is in the 4 corners, and then I would grid it on depending, now, you know, if you have a romantic partner, you'd have to have also consent and permission kind of thing to share that with your partner. And normally we would choose a partner that would be in alignment with that. And you would grid both sides of the bed very differently for the sole purpose of each individual. And so the way that I would grid it, let's say for myself, is that I would have a line, 2 lines that represent the legs, 2 at the bottom of where the feet are, besides the 4 corners. So the 4 corners of the bed are done. The 4 corners of the room are done. The lines for the legs are done. And then the line for your spine all the way up. And then you would change a bit of the crystals that would go where your neck is, and then one that would be around like an ankh, by using the ankh energy of doing a round, kind of like it is. It looks just like an ankh if you were to lay it on your mattress and then put your sheets over it. So you don't have to worry about, like, if you're moving around that, you know, it gets stuck in your hair or stuck in unwanted other places kind of stuff. You put a sheet over it and lie down on it. But you ask your body, what is it that you require to help you to feel safe, protected, secured, and of the highest frequency, to allow my spirit and soul to journey on my sacred dream walk at night, and then allow them to communicate back to you as to what really works and what doesn't. And in some cases, I found for the longest time, I used to have a lapis lazuli, a big brick of lapis lazuli, and I had put that under my bed of where my head would be, on top of all the other gridding. But that would help me as a scribe. That would help me to really have a better discernment in my dreams about the different channels or the different messages coming in, so that when I woke up, I could be a clear scribe to transpose it all down, transcribe it.
Wow,
Boy, did I go off on a tangent. Sorry.
No, that's great. Great teaching. Yeah, dream time. Yeah.
Michelle, because so many so many ask themselves all of those questions too. And it's interesting when we go back in when we're sharing our stories, you know, as a conscious, heart-based collective, we need to share our stories. We need to share our experiences. That's part of the healing journey, and it may help many others on their healing journeys also. And sometimes we don't believe that our stories matter, when in fact our stories are all part of the grand adventures of the human walk. And it's in our experiences of this human walk that leads us later to be the future ancestors, and what we can share for the generations to come, and to help them through potentially very sticky situations coming up.
Yeah.
So your story, your voice, your heart, it matters. And I thank you for sharing, because it is very deep, and we normally really don't like to talk about ourselves. And in this sacred space, it's about recognizing the fullness of ourselves and celebrating the fullness of ourselves. The good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, all of it. And there's no such thing as a the perfect experience, or the or the perfect guru, or the perfect medicine man, or the perfect priest, or like that's just all. I believe we are in that time where we're sharing from our experiences, and no longer looking for validations from someone else that we put up on a pedestal as a guru. We could connect with others' stories and their journeys and their trials, and what made them who they are today, and how did they make it through. And all of that makes an imprint and a difference for the collective as a whole. So I thank you, and I thank Cherise for both being able to dive deep into your heart and sharing from the depths of your different experiences, because it's not easy. That's really not easy.
Hi everyone.
Yeah, I wanted to say to Michelle, it's really, your story is really heartfelt, and it shows how mediumship can be so healing, and the journey towards healing, for you to solve the question of whether your husband's soul survived death is such a powerful way to begin a search. I was just gossiping, right? I mean, that's really all I was doing, was trying to sleuth around and find out what really happened, and nobody would tell me about it at my work. But you had a hard question that really needed to be answered, and I think that's also why it's so emotional for you too. And that is so important, to never forget the healing power of mediumship. So that was one thing I wanted to say.
Well, Michelle, may I say something?
Mm-hmm.
For a period of time for myself,
Mm-hmm.
from the time I was, what I've noticed in pattern recognition. Notice that there are certain times where situations come up that then makes or creates the space for me to step back or step out of doing whether it's healings, whether it's psychic readings, whether it's the whatever that is. It's times where we need to recalibrate, and it happens to all of us. And at those times, those are the times where we feel as though it's almost like we feel like we want to give up. But it's in those times that we're about to do either an upgrade or have another layer of depths to our awareness of our own capabilities. But we go through a like where it feels like we're stagnant, but it's really part of us is it's like to recalibrate all of our energies. And also after a period of time, especially if you're doing hundreds or thousands of different energies that you're dealing with, at a certain time you do need to put yourself in your own sacred neutral bubble and close everything out so that you can recalibrate to just you and all that there is for you, and whatever way it is for you, and to also distill what is it in all the patterns of all the different beings and energetics of their concerns, their stories, their experiences. What are all those little patterns that bring a greater awareness to yourself, perhaps, of what the collective is trying to come through to you about? And then once you calibrate and you clear out and cleanse out any lingering for those that don't know, I still stumble on words or my pronunciation from being born legally deaf and learning how to re-speak properly when I was like 7, 8 years old. So sometimes I do, especially when I'm speaking in other languages. But to come back to this, don't ever feel down about that. It means that you're coming to a point where you're about to make a whole other breakthrough if you can be still enough within yourself. That's all. Now you've had all kinds of confirmations since then that
I did. Yes,
you just can't deny it because it's real, it's there, and it really is you.
Yeah, I was shocked. You remember how shocked I was in the beginning? I didn't want to accept that. I said, no way, no way. I hated it. I hated the energy, because I don't like, I'm scared of snakes and I'm scared of dragon, kind of thing. Not so much of a dragon, but I think snake in particular, I just like petrified. Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. Heather, what about yourself in sensing and seeing?
Going on a journey with me. Okay. So you're asking when I felt like when my abilities came online, or like what? Man, I can never figure out how old this. Okay. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, basically it's when did you first sense that you had these abilities or these capabilities that perhaps weren't like everyone else around you?
Well, honestly, it really, I guess, when I trusted myself has been in the last like 7 years, more so in the last 4, but I would have to say that I have had trouble differentiating between reality and dream time since I was a child. I'm not sure to this day if some of my dreams really happened here in this reality or if they happened in the dream time. I don't know. I mean, I've actually asked my mother, did we do this? This seems like this might have been dangerous, you know, because I didn't know. So I've definitely had a connection to dreaming since I was a child. I also intuitively knew to give offerings to the earth as a child too, in the form of ancestral soups. I just didn't realize that that's what I was doing back then. I was just sitting in my backyard with a 5-gallon ice cream bucket and water and grass and just throwing it in there and making little fairy soups. So when I was a little girl, so now I do it as a grown up. But yeah, it's really been over the last few years. I always dabbled in like wanting to know tarot, you know, like wanting to get readings, wanting to hear about the other side from people. I was always really interested in different like stories, and I guess mythology is really because I was raised very Christian, went to a Christian school. That all was evil, you know. I mean, down to like they told me I couldn't listen to music with like heavy drum beats because that was evil, you know. So my kitties are going crazy. But I can tell you what, like probably one of my biggest knowingness, something that I knew was probably that I knew that Danny and I were supposed to be together. And we were like frenemies for like 10 years. We met when we were teenagers. And it wasn't until we were in our early 20s that we started like really hanging out. And then like I knew we were supposed to be together. He was with somebody else. And I literally felt like a crazy stalker person. I was like, oh man, why do I feel this way about this man? Drives me insane. And then it ended up just unraveling over 10 years, you know, his relationship, my relationships. And then when we finally started hanging out and getting together, I had set myself up distrusting myself for so long that when I finally told him my feelings about him, and he said, well, yeah, of course I feel that way too, you know, and I was like, what are you talking about? You know, I was so mad at him. He was like, why do you think we've been hanging out so much? And I'm like, because we're friends. But that was something that I knew, and it was like nobody could tell me different. And I just kind of, you know, he even got engaged to someone, and I still was like, I was trying to tell myself like, you know, this is, you know, like, okay, he's engaged, you gotta let go. No, I wouldn't let go. It's not happening. It's like when you have that connection, you just have that connection. And he even denied it for a long time. He's not going to tune in and say anything, but he even did for a long time. Drove me bananas, but I love the crap out of him. So, but that was the biggest one. And then over the last, like, you know, almost 12 years now, I think that it's been 11 years since we kind of like woke up, you know, but we stepped into our abilities very, very slowly, because it was just the two of us, really. Like, we didn't really know of anybody really on the path. Like, we had a couple friends, but you a couple friends that were kind of on the level, I guess you could say. But I feel safe enough to use my abilities when he creates the space, when he creates the grid, when he clears the space, and then I'm able to tap in easier. I mean, sometimes there are things that come through where it's just like, oh, we're not supposed to do that. We're not supposed to go there. This thing's not going to happen. Like sometimes I'll say like, I don't want to say this, but I'm pretty sure this isn't going to happen. And it's like, you don't want to put it out there, but when you know kind of thing. Yeah, it's like when I can feel his space and his energy, then it's like I can usually tap into people pretty well, but mine is more through physical touch. Like when I'm able to put my hands on like
hear anything, there's no sound.
Feet or ankles, So that's about it for me. It's a bunch of weird little things though.
I can't wait. Heather, we got to circle back.
Yeah, go ahead.
To the, maybe next week. Let's touch on how ceremony is brought to a whole other level when you have a sacred feminine and a sacred masculine. And especially when you've balanced those energies within yourself, to balance them out with that energy of a frenemy, but it's really not a frenemy. It's just because there's such a depth of connection. And I've recently had this experience. So let's get into that topic next Thursday, because that'll be that's a whole other level. We got to get into masculine, divine, feminine, because I'm enjoying it. Anyways,
yay!
We'll come to that.
Ooh, do tell.
We'll have to turn the recording.
You have to shut the recording off for that. That's SacredMEET After Dark.
Yeah, that's a great. We got to do that. SacredMEET After Dark. Woohoo! Now, Christy, would you like to share a little bit with us?
Sure, I can share something. So, when Heather was talking, it made me think I have had spiritual experiences sprinkled throughout my life. Anyway, I can tell you the one that I remember from the very first experience that I remember having. I was in grade school and we went to an assembly. So we were all in the gym / lunchroom, and someone came and so we were watching what it was he was doing. One of the things is he had a deck of cards and he shuffled it, and he had one that he was showing the whole audience, and he told everybody to think of that card, and then he was gonna find that card. Okay, and so I'm sitting here with everybody, and I don't know what made me do it, but I just thought I want to think of this card. So I thought a different card in my head, and he was like concentrating, and all of a sudden he said the name of the card that I was thinking. And just then I knew that like mind powers existed, and people laughed at him. He realized he messed up, and I felt so much anger from him. He was so frustrated, embarrassed, and angry, and he accusingly looked like, who thought the wrong thing? So he was like, wait, and he was thinking, and I was like, don't make eye contact, just act normal, like look down, look at the card, don't look at him. And then he got it right the second time, and I was just so impressed with him. I was just like, oh my gosh, this guy, he can read people's minds. But yeah, he would have been really angry at me. So I didn't say anything to him when we left, and that was the first time that I knew that. So that was my story.
Wow, look at that. You telepath. Ah. Wow, that's pretty cool.
That is.
Yeah, he didn't think so. I thought it was pretty. I didn't even remember telling anybody about it. I just had this experience, like, oh, okay, recess, you know. But yeah, I remembered it later when I was older.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thanks for sharing, Christy.
That was pretty incredible.
Thanks.
Amazing.
Yes, well, that's pretty interesting because I think we when we're talking about mediumship and our psychic abilities and all that stuff, it can be a little it's interesting, all the different synergies also in all of our different stories. It's really, really, really interesting that we've all had almost the same experiences, just in different ways, because those different ways is what possibly pushed us to where we are today. Good, bad, ugly, beautiful, all of it.
Yes.
And, you know, for myself, it was something that I still can remember back to when I was like 4 months old, 6 months old, and looking and watching myself, but from above. And I wasn't fully integrated into my body, like my physical body, till I was about 4 years old. And my parents, my family really didn't understand, nor did they really, it scared them of different, where I would be saying, well, hey, you know, grandma's here and grandma wants to say this or that. And for me, as being a little kid, it was just, well, isn't this normal? Doesn't everyone see these things? And then at a certain point, when you realize that everyone else kind of like moves away from you when you start bringing these type of things up. And my parents too thought, hey, you know what? Let's get her into Sunday school. Let's get her into church. And, you know, perhaps this is what will change things. And as a matter of fact, it started to open me up to even deeper questions about what is real, what's not real. And for myself too, it was about, well, how come I know a being that I call Jesus, but is not the same as what is in the Bible? And why is it that these pastors or priests, or why can't they answer my questions? And why is a couple of the biggest things that always stuck with me with the Bible, and I went searching for answers to why am I hearing these things? Why am I seeing these things? And how can I stop it? Because sometimes it felt it felt paralyzing, because as a kid you don't know what to do. And you know, you're sitting down for a family supper, and here you have 5 others who have passed from the family all sitting at the table, and your parents are like, hey, pay attention. And you're like, yeah, but it's like, no, don't make those excuses. Like, pay attention, like, come on. Right? Like, and not to say that like, you know, I love my family and stuff like that. Just, they were in, at a certain point, my parents, both of them, later on, I found out that they were really into the whole supernatural and I remember when I was little, I had found this old box with all these books of like, you know, the supernatural and the unknown. And I was like, oh, now I can really like, and later on I found out that they both believed that they were a priest and a priestess from Atlantis is what they believed that they were. But at the time when I was younger, my psychic abilities were to a point where if I got really mad, and my parents, although my dad has passed away many years ago now, but my mom would tell you that there was one night in particular when we were all sitting at the kitchen table and I was really, really, really mad because of a couple of really traumatic things that were happening with me. And I couldn't understand why I wasn't getting certain help kind of thing. And I was at that age also, and this would have been about 7 or 8 years old too, where I was mad at my dad for being an alcoholic. I was mad at the dysfunctioning family. I was mad at all kinds of different things. And this one night when we're all sitting there and I seemed to be getting in trouble for whether I didn't wash a dish properly or I didn't hang the dish towels in perfect alignment. And I got so mad that I was like, at the kitchen table. And as soon as I was like, all my parents' plants off of their, and they had a big kind of like almost like a bookshelf of all these plants lifted up and they went straight down the hall through the kitchen and right over our kitchen table. And my parents were just in utter shock. My brother went hiding underneath the table thinking that, something like he couldn't understand. And he was a lot younger than me. But anyways, from that point, my parents understood that it wasn't just a phase. It wasn't just a fad, that there was something else really significant going on with me. And then that's where the whole church thing came in. And then later on, for myself, other adults would try to capitalize on my gifts by holding like these psychic readings where myself as a little kid would be sitting with a candle with an adult and explaining. And my whole thing was all about fire and candles, and that if I could look into a candle, I could see past, present, future, dimensions, universes, galaxies. But I found the safe way of doing it was through the candle. And for me, I guess as a child, that's what I built up as my safe zone, was using the candle as the conduit to that it was a safe place. And then when I being that young and not understanding that there's certain discernment that you need when you are doing psychic readings and stuff like this, that there's a certain consent also, that even though you could read past, present, or future, doesn't necessarily mean that's of the highest good for that individual at that point in time of their journey. And so what I understand today compared to back then was that I would get a lot of blowback and not understand what was going on, but I would get a lot of blowback because I didn't have the proper foundation of how to protect yourself too, and how to protect those that you're interacting with. It's not just about protecting you, but how do you protect that person also from yourself and other versions of yourself and other versions of them. And when it would get to a certain point where I felt as though as a child I was hurting other individuals because they would cry. And because I was so empathic as a child, I would feel people. When I would walk into a room, I would feel the room. I might not have understood what was really all going on, but it was a very difficult world to try to walk through. And when I thought that what I was doing was hurting others, I tried to do everything I could to try to shut it down and to try to block it out. And the more that I tried to shut it down, the more that I tried to block it out, the bigger the attacks also would come. And because we also had very dysfunctional, low frequency energies within our family house, I was always battling these other type of really dark energies. Like as a child, there would be so many nightmares and stuff of these beings that would literally be on top of me as a child and holding me down, where it was like, I can't breathe, I can't. And I was so scared that you can't even get a sound out. And when you're like, and you feel and you see this, like, whoa, it was disgusting. This is also where other spirit guides would come in, or star family would come in. And to me, it was no different that an Arcturian versus a human being. To me, we were all beings, and it's just different skin suits. So I wasn't scared of. I was actually more comfortable with the spirit world or with star beings than what I was with the human world, with the earth realm, if that makes any sense. And so I've gone way off, but so I understand the whole church thing, and I also understand the whole thing about this being that presents itself as a Jesus being, but is not the Jesus in the Bible, but is such a higher. I can't even put words to it. It's like the depths of a heart love that. Yeah, I'll leave it like that.
Yeah,
Mandy, I have to say that I'm pretty sure that the reason that your gifts came online so early, like even as an infant, is because you were born with the inability to hear. And so when you have one thing like that taken away, then you're able to have your extrasensory abilities come online sooner. So it makes sense to me that you were able to remember those things and remember things so young and see things so young.
Total sense. And also the idea that you were probably hearing other things from other frequencies and just not earth frequency makes complete sense. That there was a different conversation you were a part of, and possibly if you were not fully embodied at that point, it may have also been that that was just not something that you needed at that point until you got older. But wow, I'm still reeling from the story about the plants moving down the hallway and going over.
Yeah, or
That's
my poor dad. Like I had these in-depth conversations with him just before he passed, and he was a man that was because he grew up as an orphan and through the residential schools type of stuff, and so he wasn't a man that would give hugs or be very affectionate or anything like that. So growing up, if I wanted affection from him, I would have to go to him and give him a hug, and he would still be like this until till almost about 6 months before he passed is where he started to actually open up and we started to have deeper conversations. But I remember one night that I was so mad with how he was treating the family because of being an alcoholic, that I was like, oh, you gotta learn. But I got so mad that all you could hear was my dad, like within minutes of me saying this, I was in my bedroom and my dad was in his bedroom and he was lying down out on his bed, like reading a book. And within minutes of me saying that, you hear my dad scream, like, I won't repeat the words, but he screams certain words like, bah, 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 bah. And we all come, my brother and I come running out of our rooms and we go down to my father's, my mom and dad's room. And here is this flashlight that, you know, the old school magnetic flashlights that would stick to your refrigerator. Well, we had one of those in the kitchen, but it was no longer on the refrigerator. It was detached from the refrigerator and it went straight right over his head from the kitchen right into the bedroom and right over his head, and it smashed in pieces. And we had a conversation about that, you know, like 24 years after that kind of thing. And he says, you know, I knew it was you. I just didn't want to recognize it because I wasn't ready to recognize it. And I was too scared of what the potentials are on the other side of life for him to really acknowledge what that all was about. And he actually apologized and stuff like that, which was a whole other level. So, but that's where I learned that our emotions and our consciousness is connected to our realities. And what we're putting out, what we're projecting out, is what we'll receive back in various forms. How would you guys like to, what can we leave this on a really good note? How do we, help me out, jump in. What's the message to leave for future generations, past, present, and future?
I would just say that, you know, the quote unquote sixth sense or supernatural, the extrasensory perception, everyone has the ability to do it, to use it, to tap in. But it's the cultural messaging, family messaging, all of it can be so overwhelming that oftentimes we think that it's a special person who's on TV or in a book or in a movie who's the only person that can do that, and that we must pay them lots of money to access these things. And I often find that if people can learn how to access it for themselves and understand and trust that they can for themselves, that is the greatest gift you can give yourself and your loved ones, is understanding the depth of your own ability. It can not only heal you, but it can heal bloodlines, because you can release so many of your ancestors from their own shame and fear of what they were able to do and the perception of it. So.
Okay, so I really love that Michelle connected with her dragon. And so, yes, I think everyone should connect with their dragon. Just say, hey, I believe I have a dragon. What is your energy? Sit there in wherever you are and just feel the energy of your dragon. That's what I say.
Oh, Christy Pureheart, thank you.
So you want like something for the future, or past, present, future?
Yes, in the present moment of now.
I would say that the most important thing to remember is that you are the magic. It's not, I mean, it's the going off of what Cherise said, like, you can have all the sage, all the Palo Santo, all the crystals, all the classes, all the meditations, activations, whatever, and it doesn't matter unless you believe in yourself and you trust yourself. You can clear a room with your voice. You know, you can fill a space with your energy. You know, you are the magic, and that's it. You know, everything else is just tools and helpers. You know, they're great helpers, but you know.
Right. Remember the technology of your own body.
There you go.
Of your heart.
That's it. That's it.
And with that, thank you for being here with all of us in SacredMEET, and I hope that our journey has helped all of your journeys, and share with us your experiences so that we can also continue with our different stories of our life walk, of our human walk on this beautiful red road.
Thank you. Thank you, Mandy. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody, good night.
Good night. Bye. Bye, River. Bye.